San Francisco is hosting the APEC summit. Leaders from around the world are arriving, and all eyes are on one high-stake meeting. The one which is happening after a year, the meeting between US President Joe Biden and the Chinese President Xi Jinping. Xi Jinping has arrived in San Francisco. This is his first visit to the United States in 6 years. Overseas Chinese in the city gathered to welcome Xi Jinping. They lined up along the way from the airport to the hotel where Xi Jinping would be staying and waved Chinese flags. Xi Jinping is due to meet US President Joe Biden. Where exactly? The location has not been officially disclosed, but what we do know is it will be in the San Francisco Bay Area and it will be away from the main summit venue. Reports, however, saying that it will be at the historic and secluded country house of Filoli. When President Joe Biden was asked about his agenda for that meeting, this is what he had to say. Listen in.
To get back on a normal course of corresponding, being able to pick up the phone and talk to one another if there's a crisis, being able to make sure our military still have contact with one another. We can't take, as I told you, we're not trying to decouple from China. But what we're trying to do is change the relationship for the better.
You see, after a long spell of strained ties, the US is trying to make amends with China. And high on Joe Biden's priority list is restoring military-to-military communication with China. As for Xi Jinping, he is seeking to entice foreign investment. He is also expected to dine with top US business executives. You see, China is facing an economic slowdown, and America's restrictions on investments in China have not helped the cause. There are disagreements between the two superpowers in terms of security, in terms of human rights. Last year, the value of US foreign direct investment in China dropped to roughly $8 billion. This was the lowest level in nearly 2 decades. China had responded to the curbs with its own rules. It introduced limits on exports of critical minerals used to make computer chips. Simply put, a lot needs to be straightened out. While one meeting may not be able to solve everything, it is one step towards normalizing ties and opening communication. And Washington also hopes for more cooperation from Beijing in dealing with drug trafficking. The synthetic opioid drug fentanyl has become a menace in America, especially San Francisco. And the US seeks China's help to rein in its production. Other than that, there are wars to discuss, of course. While US-China ties seem to be toying with multiple high-level meetings and the leaders finally talking in person, there are several sticking points between the two. Earlier, the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken addressed ministers of the APEC. He stressed that the US believes in a region where economies are free to choose their own path and where goods, ideas, people flow lawfully and freely. Although Blinken stopped short of naming China, his words echoed the US rhetoric in recent years that China bullies smaller countries in the Indo-Pacific. The White House National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby, meanwhile, said, and I'm quoting, "President Biden is not going to be afraid to confront where confrontation is needed on certain issues where we don't see eye to eye." So what turn will this meeting take? Will the ties mend or will they fray further? Will the bromance brew between Xi Jinping and Joe Biden? For more on this, we are now being joined by Voice of America correspondent Jessica Stone, who is in San Francisco, getting us the very latest and monitoring all those developments. Jessica, hi. What are you picking up regarding the expectations from the Xi-Biden meeting?
President Biden coming into this meeting with Xi Jinping on the outskirts of San Francisco with a few goals, but above all, he really just wants to set a floor under the relationship, make sure it doesn't worsen, increase communication, and yet Washington has set expectations low for major outcomes coming out of this summit. That said, they are looking to achieve some domestic outcomes. Number one, this U.S. president, he's running for re-election, and there is a fentanyl crisis across the country. We have thousands of Americans dying of the drug overdose from fentanyl, a highly addictive substance that has precursors that come from China across the southern border. So he's going to look to reestablish previous agreements that China has made, hold them to account for those, and make sure that they are working hand in hand with U.S. drug enforcement and law enforcement officials on that issue. Number two, the U.S. really wants to increase military-to-military communication, reestablish it in effect, because they say during this Chinese spy balloon incident earlier this year in February, they could not get a hold of Beijing to find out what was going on. And with the increase and uptick in activity in the South China Sea, around the Taiwan Straits, and other key parts that also include shipping lanes, which are important to the entire globe, the U.S. really wanting to have an opportunity to reestablish those military-to-military communications with Beijing in order to deconflict and prevent any escalation of a military nature.
Right. Jessica, to what extent will the two wars, the Russia-Ukraine war and the Israel-Hamas war, figure in the discussions given China's expanding outreach in West Asia?
We saw this in New Delhi during the G20, even though that was an economic conference much like this one. The Ukraine war was front and center for many, in particular in the West. So this will be no different. President Biden is expected to bring up a range of issues, the entire slate of issues, because this is the first time he's met face-to-face with President Xi in almost a year. So during their 4-hour meeting, we do expect the Russia-Ukraine war to come up. We also expect the President of the United States to try to get China to put some pressure on Russia vis-a-vis North Korea and their cooperation around the deployment of the missile program and the nuclear weapons program in North Korea. In terms of West Asia, there could be a key role for China to play. Obviously, China has increased its involvement in the region economically and also more recently diplomatically. The U.S. is looking to Beijing to put some pressure on Tehran with respect to its funding of Hamas and Hezbollah. If Hezbollah were to open up another front in that war, it certainly escalates what has already become a very bad, bloody and controversial war between Israel and Hamas in the Gaza Strip that's taking thousands of civilian lives every day. So the U.S. looking to Beijing to put some pressure on Tehran vis-a-vis Hezbollah and also vis-a-vis Hamas itself, which of course is backed by the Iranian government from a funding perspective. So these two hotspots could have real U.S.-China cooperation coming into play, and we expect President Biden to raise those as well.
Right, Jessica, we're leaving it there for the moment. Thanks very much for joining us with those inputs. Meanwhile, Syria has made some serious allegations. The country has called for investigation into Israel's alleged use of white phosphorus in Gaza and Lebanon. It wants an OPCW investigation. According to a local news outlet, Syria's envoy to the United Nations, Dr. Al-Hakam Dandi, called for the investigation into Israel during the 4th session of the Conference on Establishment of a Middle East Zone free of nuclear weapons and other weapons of mass destruction. He called upon the OPCW, or the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, to launch an investigation. He said, and I'm quoting, Israel's possession of vast stockpiles of nuclear, chemical and biological weapons of mass destruction with the support of its allies in the United States and other Western countries, has significantly escalated the grave threat to both regional and global peace and security, quote unquote. But this is not the first time that Israel has faced these allegations. Since the Israel-Hamas war started, unverified videos have circulated online. So what exactly are they and why are they a cause of concern? White phosphorus is a highly combustible chemical that burns quickly and brightly when exposed to air. It's also very difficult to put out. It clings onto surfaces, including the skin and clothes, and so it is extremely dangerous. It can cause severe burns, even down to the bone. And so the use of white phosphorus is restricted under international humanitarian law. Although there can be lawful uses, it must never be fired at or in close proximity to a populated civilian area or civilian infrastructure due to the high likelihood that the fires and the smoke it causes spread. It must be noted here that Israel has on multiple occasions denied using the weapon. But with Syria raising this allegation and demanding an investigation, it has become a serious matter. And let's now shift our focus to Pakistan. Last night, we told you how killers are getting killed mysteriously in Pakistan, how terrorists are being shot dead. A total of 19 of them have died this year. 24 hours back, 2 more were hunted down. Just have a look at this video. It's from Pakistan's Punjab province. It shows 2 Lashkar terrorists being shot at in broad daylight. The incident unfolded at the Kokran Chowk in Sialkot, causing major unrest among the local population. Have a look. You saw that for yourself. Who were these men? They have been identified as Mohammad Muzammil and his associate Naimur Rahman. A third associate was also shot at, and last we checked, he was in a critical condition. Remember, this killing comes just 24 hours after a Jaish-e-Mohammed terrorist was killed in Pakistan. His name was Maulana Rahim Ullah Tariq. Tariq was not only a key member of the terror group, he was also a close aide of Masood Azhar. On the 13th of November, the Jaish terrorist was shot dead in Karachi's Orangi town. According to Pakistani media reports, Tariq was on his way to attend a religious gathering when unidentified men opened fire on him. And 3 days before that, on the 10th of November, another LET recruiter and commander, Akram Khan Ghazi, was gunned down by bike-borne assailants in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. Pakistani law enforcement tried to point fingers at India, but Pakistani news outlets said infighting within the factions led to his murder. And then on the 7th of November, a key member of another terror group, LET or Lashkar-e-Toiba, Khwaja Shahid, was abducted and later found beheaded. Who exactly was he? Well, Khwaja Shahid was believed to be involved in the 2018 terrorist attack on the Indian Army camp in Jammu and Kashmir's Sunjwan. That's 4 killings in just 1 month, and it does not even end there. On the 10th of October, Shahid Latif, a Jaish-e-Mohammed terrorist and mastermind of the 2016 Pathankot attack, was killed. He was killed by 3 masked gunmen. On the 30th of September, Mufti Qaisar Farooq, a close aide of LET chief Hafiz Saeed, was gunned down in Karachi. On the 12th of September, LET terrorist Zia-ur-Rahman was killed while he was out for a stroll. And on the 6th of May, Paramjit Singh Panjwar, one of India's most wanted criminals and the head of Khalistan Commando Force, was gunned down in Lahore. So you have Khalistanis, you have Islamic extremists, they are all biting the dust in Pakistan, getting killed in their own playing field. What explains this? Are Pakistani terrorists now at war with themselves? Are these killings the result of some inter-gang rivalries? Whatever be the case, one thing is clear. These killings are not happening out of the blue. There certainly has been a trigger that has resulted in these cases. WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the updates on the move.